In a recent episode of Dale Earnhardt's NASCAR podcast, veteran NASCAR personalities Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi talked about a number of significant rule changes for the 2025 season. The talk revolved around NASCAR's new Open Exemption Provisional regulation. The Open Exemption Provisional, or OEP rule, is a significant addition to NASCAR's rulebook. This rule allows world-class drivers from other racing series to compete in the NASCAR field without fear of missing out. What makes this rule stand out is that it allows NASCAR to expand the field beyond the standard 40-car limit to accommodate these guest drivers. Jeff Gluck, a distinguished journalist from The Athletic, strongly opposed the new regulation. He stated, "That's crazy. Come on now. That makes you look less than. I don't think that's good for NASCAR." Gluck is concerned about the rule's possible impact on the sport's integrity and fairness. Gluck highlighted the examples of Max Verstappen, the reigning Formula One champion, and Kyle Larson from NASCAR to make his case. He claimed that if Verstappen chose to race in NASCAR, he would be guaranteed a slot due to the new rule. The same courtesy would not be offered to a NASCAR driver wanting to compete in Formula One. This difference illustrates a potential imbalance in how different racing series handle crossover opportunities. It's basically saying, it's screaming to Lewis, to Max, to Daniel Ricciardo, please come, give us attention from the F1 fans. The repercussions of this rule go beyond simply enabling famous drivers to compete. It might have a substantial impact on qualifying processes and the options available to current NASCAR drivers. The rule calls into doubt the principles of fairness and merit-based competition that underpin professional racing. The timing of this regulation change coincides with a major announcement from Trackhouse Racing. Helio Castroneves, a notable IndyCar driver, will join the team's 2025 Daytona 500 roster, driving the number 91 Cup Series car. Castroneves will make his NASCAR Cup Series debut at the Daytona International Speedway. He will compete with Trackhouse Racing's full-time Cup Series drivers, Daniel Suarez, Ross Chastain, and Shane Van Gisbergen. Castroneves is not the only major addition to the 2025 Daytona 500 field. Mike Wallace, a 65-year-old veteran NASCAR racer, is also scheduled to compete in this famous race. Wallace will be behind the wheel of the number 66 MBM Motorsports Cup Series car. Currently, 5 open cars have been confirmed for the 2025 Daytona 500. 44 JJ Yeley of NY Racing, number 62. Anthony Alfredo of Beard Motorsports, number 66 Mike Wallace of MBM Motorsports, number 78 BJ McLeod of Live Fast Motorsports, and number 91 Helio Castroneves of Trackhouse Racing. However, the field has the potential to expand significantly. According to Bob Pockris of Fox Sports, 3 more cars could compete in the event. Number 15 Rick Ware Racing, driver to be revealed. Number 84 Jimmy Johnson of Legacy Motor Club, and a ride for former Joe Gibbs racing driver Martin Truex Jr. While these NASCAR changes were developing, Dale Earnhardt Jr. became involved in another athletic event that piqued his interest: the Washington Commanders. Earnhardt Jr.'s favorite NFL team won a playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This victory was particularly significant because it marked the end of the franchise's nearly 2-decade playoff drought. The Commanders defeated the Buccaneers in a thrilling NFC wildcard game, 23-20. The game's top player was rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, who threw for 268 yards and 2 scores. Dale Jr., a longtime Commanders fan, took to social media to express his excitement and reminisce on his fandom experience. He posted on X, "I have been a Washington fan since 1982. It's been a long run, some good, some bad, but it's amazing to be nervous for a playoff game again. And my little girls are growing to love the team. They just might have a lot of fun over the next several years." This tweet not only showed Dale Jr.'s emotional engagement in the club, but it also underlined the generational component of sports fandom by mentioning his daughter's growing interest in the Commanders. Interestingly, Dale Jr. was not the only NASCAR figure to respond to NFL playoff action. Brad Keselowski, an RFK racing driver and Michigan native, joined the conversation with his own tweet, "See you next week at Commanders. Go at Lions." This amicable conversation among NASCAR drivers regarding their preferred NFL teams adds an intriguing layer to the motorsport scene. Returning to the NASCAR rule changes, the Open Exemption Provisional rule is only one of several big changes coming to the sport in 2025. Another significant change is the waiver rule, which has been updated to dissuade drivers from competing in other racing series at the expense of NASCAR events. Under the new waiver rule, drivers must not only start all championship events for the current season, but also attempt to finish all of them. This phrase is intended to prevent instances in which a driver starts a race and then leaves to compete in another event, like as the Indianapolis 500. You have to start all the championship events of a current season, all races, all points races, but you must, this is new wording, quote, attempt to complete all of the races. So, in other words, they, I think, are trying to make it so, like if I'm reading it correctly, you can't start the race, get out, and then go run the Indy 500 if there was some sort of conflict. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've got to be in the car the whole time. You better not leave, or else you need a waiver for that. Furthermore, if a driver is granted a waiver for skipping a playoff race for any reason other than medical reasons or age limits, they will forfeit all of their playoff points. This penalty applies not only to the points accumulated so far, but to all playoff points earned throughout the season. This stringent policy may have a big influence on drivers such as Kyle Larson, who have competed in a variety of racing series. The Damaged Vehicle Policy, DVP, has also experienced significant changes. Previously, if a car incurred crash damage and could not be driven back to the pits, or if repairs took longer than the 7-minute damage repair time, the car was removed from the race. The new rules permits cars to visit a designated garage repair area, similar to how repairs are handled in dirt track racing. Under the new DVP, teams are given as much time as they need to complete repairs. If they undertake repairs on pit road and exceed the 7-minute time limit, they are not eliminated from the race, but must head to the garage. Once the repairs are completed, the car will have one opportunity to meet the minimum speed before resuming to the race. The towing regulation has also been changed. If a car cannot be driven back to the pits, it will be towed to the repair area rather than being disqualified from the race. While this may result in the loss of several laps, it allows teams to continue competing rather than being disqualified automatically. NASCAR has also implemented additional manufacturer penalties in reaction to previous season scandals. These penalties may be imposed for violations of testing policies, wind tunnel regulations, roster limits, or the code of conduct. Possible penalties include losing manufacturer points, reducing wind tunnel hours, and suspending or ejecting manufacturer representatives. The long-standing 100% rule has been altered as well. Instead of the prior phrase concerning artificially manipulating finishing positions, the new language focuses on attempts to manipulate the race's conclusion. This change aims to clarify NASCAR's stance on race manipulation and provide more specific guidelines for enforcement. Several more modest yet significant adjustments have been implemented. Fines will now be assessed to the team owner or organization, not the crew chief. A new rule stipulates that vehicles that intentionally do not maintain an acceptable speed, as determined by NASCAR, shall be penalized with a tail-of-the-field penalty. This guideline is intended to restrict methods such as intentional fuel saving during caution periods. The qualification process has also been streamlined. The majority of circuits will now employ a one-round, one-lap qualifying method, while shorter tracks will use a one-round, two-lap format. This adjustment removes the more difficult group qualifying and knockout rounds, returning to a more traditional format. Do you think these changes will result in big difference across the league? And will some drivers stay away from other series to make sure they stay eligible for playoffs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.